KPC and Bahrain are the last two regional NOCs to start trading. Our colleagues in the region, be it OQ, ADNOC, Aramco, and Qatar, have started trading. I think we decided as a company to capture marginal incremental value, whereas many years we were an FOB seller. So starting trading was a strategic decision by Bapco Energies to try to capture some marginal value.
So you'd agree with the answer to this question, which was C, the pursuit of greater flexibility and capturing value across the supply chain.
Absolutely. In terms of refining capacity, as you heard this morning, the demand globally, be it Asia or Africa and now Europe, is growing. The refining capacity in the region has increased. All the refineries, be it Al Zour from Kuwait or Jizan in Saudi Arabia, Ras Al Noura and Bahrain, have all expanded their refining capacity. We are targeting to address the demand going forward. These refineries are cleaner, producing cleaner products. The refineries are more cost efficient, and they're optimizing all of their resources to maximize production.
Emad, your opening thoughts. Obviously, KPC have been, for a long time, engaged down in Asia with refining and other opportunities, now into starting trading as firm in KPC, trading, setting up at the DIFC in Dubai. Your opening thoughts, please.
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody, and I appreciate allowing me to participate in this prestigious event. I extend my deepest thanks to His Highness Shaikh Hamad bin Mohammed Shargi, Supreme Council and ruler of Fujairah, for his generous patronage and unwavering support for this event. Trading, I'm very happy to announce today that KPC have passed this milestone, and I'm happy to say that we have established our trading company. It's called KPC Trading, and we managed to get office space in the IFC. We have a dedicated team currently looking after finalizing and operationalizing the company. Just to shed some light, as my colleague mentioned here.
Just as you hold the mic a little higher. Yeah,
sorry. That it is not speculation. It's all about getting more value to the barrel that is produced in Kuwait or elsewhere. Our trading company hopefully will be ready by next year, and it will be responsible for our share in the Dugum refinery, as well as some third-party barrels, either from Kuwait or from outside Kuwait.
Can I just follow up and ask you that we've seen all of the national energy trading companies over the years, and now Aramco has offices here, the trading desk, they're in London, they're in Singapore, they're in DIFC as well. Why are you starting at the DIFC? What is it about there that seems sensible for the first step?
Well, I think it's a prime location for trading companies, and we studied many locations. I think the vicinity, it's a hub. I mean, like everybody knows, UAE is a hub, Fujairah is a hub, and it's home for all talent.
Talent is obviously key.
Absolutely. So this is one of the key things, and it's close to Kuwait as well.
And it's a lovely spot, I have to say. You know, it is a nice business park. But it's interesting that you started there as compared to, let's say, maybe starting in Kuwait or otherwise. David Bird, CEO of OQ8, the newest, grooviest refinery. You're obviously OQ, but maybe not everybody's aware, but is Oman, the sort of second energy company in Oman. Tell me about what that feels, or what your thoughts are on this change. Oman has been long one of the earliest, actually, on the trading side. Oman Trading International was co-founded with Vitol about 10 plus years ago. What does this change look like for you? Is it indeed a change? You're part of what has been a million barrels of extra refining capacity added from the region in the last year. I don't hear it on. There we go.
The on button.
The on button.
Always helps. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. So for those that don't know, Kuwait is our brand name. We're Duqm Refinery and Petrochemical Company, new build refinery on the east coast of Oman, facing out into the Indian Ocean. So perfect strategic location for a lot of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not as good.
When it comes to demand growth, even if it's not demand growth, it's the shifting of the demand centers to these developing economies that are rapidly growing: India, East Africa, Southeast Asia. So I think the epitome of the opportunity for the region to serve these growing markets. I'm glad you raised talent. We'll talk a lot about trading. The question was why, and the response, item C, which I also responded, was to capture more value. I'd like to add one point, being an expat into this region. A lot of the commentary this morning was about the importance of supply, and I think the opportunity for the GCC to take that more medium to long-term view, now that the conversation is becoming a bit more pragmatic. It's not peak and rapidly tail off, it's peak and plateau. So if we all take the position that fossil fuels will be here for the long term, it is not just capturing value from the entire value chain, it's stepping in to retain the capability of the entire value chain. And an example of that is building trading capability, investing in refining like ours, as some of the IOCs are rapidly pulling out, divesting from their refining capability. And I'm glad you raised talent, and I'll just add one. What inspires me the most coming into the region, I've been now in Oman for 2 years, is the average age. You come into our refinery and you'll see the youth. If you go to Australia, you'll find some of our schools of petroleum engineering have 0 Australian students. So some of these more developed markets, it is very hard for our industry to attract and retain the technical talent that is going to be required to sustain our supply throughout the next few decades. And I think the Middle East, the GCC countries are really stepping in, not only to extract value from the entire value chain, but actually to build and retain the capability to serve that value chain.
Shaikh Ebrahim, I'd like to just dig a little bit into the growing refining, obviously, as David mentioned, Bapco investing multiple billions into upgrading your refinery. And the title of this session, the question, Navigating Changing East-West Winds and Market Opportunities of the Global South. Since you started the planning and executing of the refinery, things have changed. Clearly, the Global South is still the growth market, but we also now have an opening market to the west. If you might just talk a little bit about how you see the Global South opportunity for the new refineries that all of you are building and have opened.
Thank you, Sean. So the refining capacity has definitely changed, I mean, in terms of demand. Demand in Europe has increased. The fundamentals have shifted, and as you know, the Global South is growing in demand. It's solid. We're confident. We have long-standing customers, and we're building on developing more customers. Our reliable supply of products into the Global South and now Europe is growing. So
speaking of that and now bit,
yeah.
Do you see that as a temporary thing, or is that you didn't build your refinery or design it for that purpose, did you? Or it has emerged and you think it'll be a temporary? How do you see those markets, optionality of going east or west?
I think, so for example, in Europe, the number of refineries are going offline are growing by the day. So, refineries going offline, refining capacity increasing in the region. So that will address the demand going forward in Europe, I believe.
And from the point of view of choices, perhaps none other than Al-Zur, KPC, have opened a 600,000 barrel refinery in this window of time. How has this window of time impacted the destination of those barrels, those refined products, versus what you had initially envisaged it to be?
Since Al-Zur started, we had many plans before it started to target the demand centers. One of those was Europe, and this was evident. We have increased our share there to be the #1 supplier of jet fuel. In the past, we never took our gas oil to Europe.
Sorry, could somebody answer that phone that it keeps ringing? Is
think
that Jorge?
It's an alarm.
Please, on silent phones, thank you. Sorry, Emad.
Yeah, before that, we never took our diesel or gas oil to Europe. Now we are the 5th in Europe. We have started shipping LR2s to the Med and Europe, Northwest Europe. So this is a major shift for us. This is coupled with our previous project, which is the Clean Fuel Project, the CFP, which enhanced the quality of our diesel production as well as jet fuel production.
David, when we look at the sort of east-west optionality in terms of the refining markets, you had sort of articulated a number of times in your vision, or in the vision of OQ8, but in the vision of all of these new refineries, that you frame it in the closing down of the Western refineries, that inevitably they're outdated, they are heavy carbon products and so forth. Does that mean that that's the market? Because obviously they have big demands for products, whereas the narrative always seems that Asia is the market for the refined products coming out of the Gulf. But Europe, with the closing of refineries there, was that a market for you? How do you see that dynamic between those two?
I think definitely the east-west dynamics will change over time. So the important thing is the strategic location of the GCC and the east coast of Oman for us particularly, in order to capitalize on those opportunities as they arise. No one would take a long-term view that there's one fixed export market. And I think yes, that was the premise, that we would build a refinery that could meet the most stringent European specs, but we were probably targeting the bulk of the volume to compete in the Asian basin. Actually, what we've discovered is that close to 50% of our products are actually competing and landing much closer to home, east coast of Africa and east-west coast of India combined. So I think a great example there of, yes, we can talk about sort of long-term global shifts, but the near-term opportunity is to build these assets that are competitive and flexible and agile to be able to serve market opportunities, because we do deal in a global commodity business.
Shaikh, the design of these refined products has been, in terms of, maybe you speak to how this is an upgrade of the Bapco refinery. You've gone way up the value chain in terms of the product mix you're looking to offer. Why are you missing out perhaps on the opportunity of the bottom of the barrel? Why have you gone so up the top end of the stream when Asia is full of refineries? India, China. Why have you chosen that mix?
So the product mix coming out of our refinery, we're a middle distillate refinery. So basically, we're doubling production of diesel going forward. With the refinery expansion, we're also doubling our jet production. We see that demand coming from Asia is growing. we see demand from Africa growing, and we see demand in Europe picking up. So our refinery is basically a middle distillate refinery, and hopefully we grow our customer base and continue the reliable supply of products to these regions.
Emad, we've talked a bit about the change that's happening at this time that has been long planned, is happening at a time when the change of flows have brought crude and products into this region, into Africa from Europe, and the reverse. But in the context of that geopolitical shifts, how will that impact your strategies, the geopolitics of all of this that lay in the background of these new flows?
Indeed, Sean, over the last years, we've seen shifts like you mentioned. We've seen the US emerge as a supplier of crude even to the east, and LNG flows to the east as well. But our strategy is the same. We are adapting to that. We target our markets, and we have a long-term relationship with many customers. For example, in Africa, we started this relationship over a decade ago, and it's based on relationship, and we continue to do that.
I mean, historically, Kuwait has obviously had a very strong relationship in terms of Europe and America and so on. Does this moment and these changes compel to look at more aggressively at the new markets, at new long-term? I mean, Africa's growth market, the population due to double in the next 20 years. Asia obviously has its own dynamics. Are these just alternative markets, or are these strategic shifts from your point of view?
To us, to be frank, these are strategic markets, and we will continue to be there to supply our clients, our customers, for the years to come. Because as you mentioned, Africa is, there is no investment there as of yet, except for the Dangote refinery, which is a game changer. I think Africa would need more than a Dangote refinery, and it will remain market potential for big demand there.
David, could you just speak to that as well? Africa, of course, this neck of the woods, and when one thinks of the global south, we think very firmly on Africa, but yet historically we haven't really had that bridge. I mean, Matt mentions the last 10 years. How do you see Africa as a destination market for all of these products, of obviously your own?
Look, I think absolutely huge. It's a huge opportunity for us. We've been pleasantly surprised by how much of our product in the near term has ended up in East Africa.
We're seeing Russian products finding a lot of homes in Africa now as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of that is driven by, look, Africa's got its challenges around governance and so forth, but still that relentless human aspiration to improve their lives, urbanization, seeking a better life, just drives that energy intensity. So we see the demand from both the population growth and the increasing urbanization will continue to drive the demand for our products. And on the flip side, because our business is supply and demand, we're a marginal business. So it's easy to only talk about demand, but as our esteemed colleagues here have said, it's about supply. We're a cyclical business. And when it comes to Africa, undoubted growing demand, but very difficult for Africa to secure investment in supply. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. But it is the reality. So I think.
Well, this could be like a refining center for Africa. Obviously, Dangote is coming. India has become a refining center for the world. Never mind just for these areas.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the next survey question before we wrap up our session, just to give everybody a chance to join in. Is the global south set to dominate global refining? Yes, due to increased refining investments in Asia and the Middle East, which we've been talking about. No, the global north will maintain dominance. C, it is unlikely as refining will become obsolete with the rise of renewables. A, B, or C, it seems like an obvious answer, but please, if you have your clickers, please vote away. 10 seconds on that. Dominate the global south. I mean, it does seem to answer itself. Your Excellency, that's clearly 70% yes, it's investing 70% there. I mean, from the point of view of market destination, when one thinks of this idea, yes, that it's going to, the global south dominate the global refining, do you think globally? I mean, obviously Europe, which is not far away through the Suez Canal and so on, but what about, like, we're talking South America, Africa, obviously we've talked about. How global do you think when you think of your market?
Very good question, Sean. Our refinery is basically catering customers, be it in, it was usually going east. Our products was the usual suspects in the east. Africa was also another customer base that we had for many, many years. Recently, we've entered Latin America. So we saw that demand coming actually as a proactive approach from us, approaching the Latin American market, and the Med with a European spec diesel has already reached Europe. So, and our jet has also reached Europe. So be it Latin America or Africa, we have developed our customer base. We continue to develop our customer base, and we always collaborate with traders and regional players to reach those markets together.
Let's get the next survey question, please, and give the rest of our panelists a chance to close out on their comments. How do you think the increasing scale of international oil sanctions will impact the rising volumes of Gulf states' refined oil product exports? How do you think the increasing scale of international oil sanctions, increased demand for Gulf oil products due to sanctions on alternative suppliers like Russia and Iran, Venezuela. Venezuela used to be a big supplier of crude to US refiners. B, diversification of export routes and markets as Gulf states adapt to changing geopolitical dynamics. C, minimal impact as Gulf states have well-established trade relationships that can weather sanctions. How do you think the increasing scale of international oil sanctions will impact? 10 seconds on that, the rising volumes of Gulf states' refined oil products exports. Emad, your thoughts on that answer as you press A, B, or C? The results behind you, 43% saying 2. How did you vote, and what are your thoughts on that? I mean, there's a lot of sanctions now. We're seeing a lot of sort of regulatory oversight that comes with that, a lot of paperwork, a lot of concern about, are you complying, who's your customer, all of these things.
Well, we're self-sanctioned, so we are following all the international, let's say, rules about sanctions. And we have our diversified market portfolio that we meet their demand.
When you see so many other countries, there's a number, as we're now most notably mentioning Russia finding new home for its products and its crude, obviously. That doesn't seem to be reducing. The countries that are sanctioned seems to grow over time. I'm wondering, what opportunity do you think, that presents for your products? You've just opened a 600,000 barrel El Zur refinery and a 200,000 barrel one in Duqm.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
During when the Russia-Ukraine war started, at that time we had a plan to go to Europe, and it's in our plan. It's not because of the war.
Okay, it was
so
already in the
it
plan.
coincided. So everybody thought that we are taking the Russians' share in the European market.
Well, the reporting was that all 600,000 capacity was going to Europe.
No, it's not. It was not working fully at that time.
All right, okay.
So, anyways, it's a plan, and we achieved that plan by grabbing those market shares that we wanted to be.
Let's go to the last question and give David the last word on this session. Right now, more than 50% of global maritime trade is at threat of disruption in 4 key choke points around the world. Has the oil market adapted with amazing flexibility, or is it asleep at the wheel? 10 seconds, adapted or asleep. And if you guys could vote on that. We saw, most notably this year, and we had some comments in our leadership roundtable by the Suez Canal Authority Director of Planning, who was telling us that their revenue is down by half this year. The redirection of a lot of traffic around the south of Africa, which you would seem in general that it's been an amazing industry adapting putting aside the news of the day. We had 2 vessels collide in the Straits of Malacca over the summer. Your thoughts on these choke point challenges as you set up a new refinery, finding new markets? How do you see that playing out?
Oh, look, I was firmly in A.
It looks like a biased audience, I would say, but nonetheless.
But it's a bias, but it's a good, I think we should be incredibly proud of how resilient and agile our industry is. And that is borne out by the stability of the pricing, by we've had incredible dislocations on the supply side, but still the market has managed to find solutions. So I think, just to echo the earlier points, it comes down to these new investments that are taken with a long-term view, and that long-term view has to have a foundation of flexibility. So an example from our own refinery, we've just loaded our second 1 million barrel cargo of diesel, and that finds its way, and actually the first one landed in France. So some of these trade dislocations like the Suez would then prohibit some of the smaller cargo size from reaching these markets competitively. So what does that mean? We need to be agile and resilient and have the infrastructure to load larger parcel sizes, so that now our refined products can compete in far distant markets than might otherwise have been the case 5 or 10 years ago.